So guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. Hope you guys are staying safe. I hope everything's good. I hope everything's good from wherever you are. Guys, Austin Trout has said that he feels that David Benavidez would definitely beat Canelo Alvarez right now. Virgil Hunter has hinted at that after the Plant fight, that Canelo needs to fight serious competition and David Benavidez is that guy. There's a lot of people out there that seem to think that David Benavidez is the man to dethrone Canelo Alvarez. David Benavidez is the man to beat Canelo Alvarez. David Benavidez is the man that's going to give Canelo hell. David Benavidez is the man that's going to, give Canelo Alvarez that loss, or obviously he's got a loss on his record, but give him another loss on that record, put another defeat on his record. They think that David Benavidez, with his height, with his reach, with his strength, with his power, may cause Canelo a lot of trouble. Obviously, we know David Benavidez has had, he's had issues making weight. He was the WBC champion. Benavidez was the WBC champion. David Benavidez could have been in a position where Canelo Alvarez, if he wanted to be undisputed, had to face him. And Eddie Reynoso said this, that we're not ducking from anyone, we're not running from anyone. We're chasing the belts. We're not ducking from you. We want the belts. We want to fight everybody. And that's what Canelo wants to do. Canelo definitely does want to fight everybody. Canelo's not running and ducking like people think. No, absolutely not. I know some people think that Canelo's ducking and running and he's, he's afraid of David Benavidez and he's afraid of Charlo and Andrade. I've had a lot of people saying that, he's running from Andrade, he's running from Charlo. See, the thing is, if he beats Benavidez, then they'll say he's running from Andrade and Charlo. If he beats Andrade, then they'll say he's running from Benavidez or Charlo. It's never ending. And then if he beats those guys, then they'll say he's running from Beterbiev. It's never ending. What I will say about Canelo, I don't believe Canelo's afraid of any of these middleweights, any of these super middleweights. Because to be honest with you, there's nothing to be afraid of. Now, fighting a guy like David Benavidez, who's tall, who's strong, Callum Smith was that. Before the Callum Smith fight, people were saying exactly the same thing. They were saying exactly the same thing, that Callum Smith's tall, he's strong. But now they'll say, David Benavidez is way better than Callum Smith. Callum Smith wasn't. Come on, Callum Smith has got a better win at super middleweight than David Benavidez. David Benavidez hasn't beaten anybody. Callum Smith had beaten George Groves, who was a very good fighter. David Benavidez hasn't beaten anybody on George Groves' level. Let's not forget, George Groves had a very, very close fight the first time around with Carl Froch until, the referee, it was controversial. The second time he was doing well and it got flattened. And then in the Badu Jack fight, he lost a split decision, I believe, which was very, very close, which some people thought he deserved to nick. So Callum Smith, I know Callum Smith fought a faded George Groves, but nevertheless, it was still a good win. Callum Smith, the thing is, a lot of the Americans hadn't seen Callum Smith. I had seen, Callum Smith was one of those guys that I looked at and thought, this guy's going to be special. This guy's going to go on to become a great British fighter. He's got it all. He was looked at like that. At one point, people were saying he's the best pound for pound British fighter out there. This is how highly, I know now it's Josh Taylor, but before Josh Taylor, a lot of people had Callum Smith as the higher. They were saying, Callum Smith is the pound for pound best UK fighter. That's how highly Callum Smith was rated. So don't underestimate Callum Smith. Callum Smith was rated very highly amongst, the fans in the UK, the boxing fans in the UK. But the thing is, because the American fans haven't seen guys like Callum Smith, they're like, he's just another UK. No. Callum Smith was a really good fighter, and he was very highly rated in the UK. Canelo was just brilliant. Now, Benavidez, for me, has a different style to Callum Smith. Benavidez has more fast hands. He has got a bit of power. He is very tall. But there's also a lot of flaws in his game. There's not a lot of head movement. He's very static. He's got a big, there's a big, body to hit there. And I don't know whether, has he got the power to keep Canelo off? Has he got the power to hurt Canelo? Because I don't think anybody that hasn't got the power to back Canelo up or push Canelo on the back foot, I don't think you can beat him. So, see, that's a question. Because although this guy's got fast hands and he looks quick and sharp, is he powerful enough? Because if he's not powerful enough and Canelo starts walking through his punches, he's not beating Canelo Alvarez. No one's going to beat Canelo Alvarez unless you can punch. You know, Canelo Alvarez has mastered the art of fighting these slick guys that aren't big punchers. This is why I don't give Andrade much of a chance, because I think you have to be a big puncher. I know people say that, oh, Canelo had trouble with Trout, Lara. That was ages ago. Canelo, for me, is a far better fighter. Look, Billy Joe Saunders was a very slick guy. That fight went about 8 rounds. Now, Billy gave him a little bit of trouble, don't get me wrong, but I had Canelo comfortably. Most people that know their boxing had Canelo comfortably winning that fight. 5-3, 4. You know, they had him comfortably ahead, you know, by the time the stoppage came. And Canelo, for me, was going to up his game, right? So a slick style, like people say with Andrade, that's not going to work against Canelo anymore. Canelo knows how to fight against those fights, especially if he doesn't respect your power. If he doesn't respect your power, you're in trouble, because you're not going to be able to keep him off. And eventually, when there's a guy like that strong, that powerful, and with that kind of boxing IQ and boxing skills, he's going to get you. He's going to get you. Canelo isn't a wild puncher. He's not a David Lemieux, like I said prior to the Billy Joe fight, that he's just going to come and throw wildly. Canelo is a very accurate, very intelligent, with a very high boxing IQ fighter. And he's not just a big puncher. So there's a massive difference between some guys that are big punchers that these slick boxers can outbox. Canelo's not that. Canelo's a very, very slick. If Canelo's got great defense, Canelo's defense was better than Billy Joe's defense. How about that? And Billy Joe's known for that. Canelo's defense, for me, Canelo was making Billy Joe miss at times. He was making Billy Joe miss punches, which Billy Joe's never had to experience before. When Billy Joe throws, he lands. But I've never seen Billy Joe. Billy Joe's never been in there with anyone of Canelo's caliber. But the fact is, Canelo was making him miss. And that was something new that he would have had to face. Because he's never, I don't think anyone's ever made him miss like that. So coming to Benavidez, I personally think Benavidez would need to hurt Canelo. If he doesn't have the power to hurt Canelo and keep Canelo off, it's just a matter of time before Canelo walks you down and hits you with body shots. And with me, watching that Benavidez, I can see Canelo knocking him out, because I don't think he has the head movement. And I think Canelo will be able to read his punches. And I think Canelo will land something huge, like an uppercut or a right hand or something that floors him. Because I don't think Benavidez has great defensive skills. You know, he's been put down, I think, once or twice. And listen, anyone can be put down. It's not about being put down. It's his fighting style. He seems quite static. He seems quite, he seems defensively not that great and there to be hit. And someone like Canelo, here's the thing with Canelo. Canelo's very explosive. Canelo has explosive power. So this is a guy that can hit you with a right hand that you don't see, that wipes you out. You know, there's always a chance of that Amir Khan, James Kirkland kind of type of knockouts. Now, Benavidez is a bigger guy than those guys, so he should be able to absorb the punches better. However, if Canelo was to hurt you and build momentum, it's very hard for you to get back into that fight, especially when you're fighting somebody that skilled. Because when you don't want to lose momentum against Canelo, because Canelo's very skilled, and then if you knock somebody down, you're going to become even more confident. You've got all the momentum. And then someone like Canelo is just going to walk straight through you. I don't know. I think Benavidez if Benavidez can hurt Canelo, Benavidez can push Canelo back, which he may be able to because he's a big guy, right? And here's the thing with Benavidez. Canelo's not had to face, now Canelo has fought fast guys, but I don't think he's never had to face a fast guy that's that big and that's tall. And that could be a problem. Because Callum Smith wasn't that. Callum Smith throws single shots. He doesn't throw combinations. Whereas Benavidez throws combinations. He's got fast hands. I just don't like his defensive setup. I think he doesn't have great head movement. And I just think Canelo will counter him with something, something huge. And also the body. Will Canelo break him down to the body? These are things that when you're fighting Canelo Alvarez, And you have to have a good defense when you're fighting Canelo Alvarez because he's too powerful. It doesn't matter how big somebody is, he's very, very powerful. Especially from super middleweight to middleweight, he's very, very powerful in around these weights, and he's capable of hurting anybody in around these weights. So that's the problem, I think, David Benavidez. David Benavidez is a very good fighter, and I like David Benavidez. I think he's really good. I just don't know whether David Benavidez has... the defensive skills to beat someone like Canelo. And that's the issue he may have, the defensive part of the game. Like I said, Canelo Alvarez's defensive skills, and not just that, his offensive and defensive skills are on point. We've not got a fighter that's weak defensively. Canelo's probably one of the best defensive fighters in the game. And then that on top of his offensive counter-punching ability that he's got, he's going to be very hard to beat. The reason why a lot of people think Benavidez is a trouble because he throws punches in combinations and he's very tall. You know, he's very tall and he's big at super middleweight. So they think that could be a problem. But I think if he was to tighten up on his defensive frailties that he seems to have, I actually think that would be a good fight. And that would be a very, very good fight. I wouldn't pick Benavidez, but I actually think that would probably be, out of everyone, even Golovkin, possibly, that might even be his toughest fight. Maybe that could still... I think it's between him and Golovkin that I think is gonna give him his toughest fight at middleweight or super middleweight. I think Benavidez and Golovkin are the two fights that I think I look at and think, you know, that these could be a problem. These could be tough. These could be fights that I think, you know, Canelo could have a bit of trouble in. Everybody else... You know, Charlo, people think he's got the style. I don't agree with Charlo. I think he's a good fighter, don't get me wrong, but I just think Canelo might, you know, I think Canelo's boxing ability, Canelo's power, I think might be too much for Charlo. And I think on Andrade, like I said, I think Andrade for me goes out like Billy Joe. I don't think Andrade has the power to keep Canelo off. And I think Canelo's developed too much as a fighter now to be, you know, for somebody to outbox him for 12 rounds. It's just not going to happen. For me, you have to be able to hurt him, push him on the back foot. And Benavidez may be able to do that. Golovkin can definitely do that because we've seen that. Whether he can still do that now, I don't know. But he obviously in his prime, we know he could do that because he did do that. He did push Canelo on the back foot. And David Benavidez may have that in him to push him on the back foot. But again, I don't know if his power is going to be able to put Canelo on the back foot. Possibly, but that's for us to see. Has Benavidez got the power, got the strength to push Canelo back and make Canelo work 3 minutes of the 3 minutes of the round? That's what you have to do. You have to make Canelo work and tire him, because Canelo likes working in spurts. He likes taking breathers, right? And what you've got to do with Golovkin, but Golovkin didn't give him those breathers. When Canelo wanted to rest, Golovkin was on him. Especially in the first fight, he was on him. He wasn't letting him rest. And that's what Golovkin was doing. And Canelo always had to be mentally switched on because Golovkin's such a big puncher. He knew that he could hurt him. If Benavidez has the same kind of punching power and able to push Golovkin back, then we'll have a fight. Because like I said, that then Canelo will have to be mentally switched off. And that drains you. You know, in a fight, you can be mentally drained. When you've got guys like Billy Joe and Andrade who can't punch, they're not mentally draining him because Canelo's not worried about their punching power. So he's relaxed. He's biding his time. He's waiting for his opportunity. But when he's fighting someone like Golovkin, he has defensive skills have to be on point because he knows this guy is dangerous and he's always on top of you. We have to find that out with Benavidez. So let's see, man. It's a good fight, Benavidez and Canelo. But I will still favor Canelo. But leave your thoughts. Let me know what you think. And guys, remember to please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.